You two, we have news today. We had some breaking news. George Kittle, happy man. There was some worry about him and the 49ers not necessarily getting along. The 49ers didn't put this one off too long. They made George Kittle the highest paid tight end in NFL history, a little over $76 million for 4 years, $40 million guaranteed. Jori, what did you think of this contract? And what does it mean for the San Francisco 49ers and their cap situation, which it's going to start getting a little dicey over there in San Francisco?
Look, we've talked often when players get extensions about if you want the player, what are they going to cost? And I think for me, the question is, when you have a lengthy deal like this, do you have an out? And it seems like they essentially have an out after a couple of years. I mean, it's $40 million guaranteed, not that full amount. And so I think that when I look at it, it doesn't seem like as George Kittle continues to age, he's in his 30s, that I'm concerned that in 3-4 years, they're not going to be able to do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a 2-year deal. It's a 2-year deal, right? Realistically, and given what his age is at this stage, the level of production, I mean, he's still an extremely productive player. And I think if you're the 49ers, you're sitting there and you're staring at signing, Brock Purdy to an extension, which is now next up in the batting order. The last person I'd want to take off that field for Brock Purdy is George Kittle. I mean, he's clearly his comfort, spot in that offense. So, to me, it makes sense giving him $40 million because ultimately, if you get past that second year and the production's just not there, there's some kind of massive injury, the contract becomes cuttable. You're going to absorb, a slight bit of pain. But again, all things considered, that is the one piece I don't think you could lose, particularly not knowing at this stage what's going to happen with Brandon Ayuk.
I do agree with that. Charles, where are you at with the 49ers, though? Because my offseason power rankings is I just ranking who had the best and worst off seasons. I had the 49ers 32nd. I thought they had the worst offseason in the NFL this year because you look at what's going out the door. And, maybe Deebo Samuel isn't the same guy he was a couple of years ago. I get that. Sure. But, I mean, stuff like that, Ayuk, I mean, they were kind of like, hey, guys, anybody want to trade for Brandon Ayuk now? And we all know the deal there. I think the 49ers are in a slide. And you even look at Kittle. Kittle's a great player. He's 31 years old. Guys like Trent Williams, really up there in age. Christian McCaffrey, we don't know where he's at. What do you think of the 49ers coming into this year? Is their window still open? Is this still a playoff team, an NFC West championship team, or have we already seen the best of the 49ers?
Well, I think people are kidding themselves if they don't think a lot of talent just, didn't go out the door, because I hear people say, well, you're getting rid of older players, replace them with younger players. That's not really what happened here. I mean, somewhat, but listen, losing a Drake Greenlaw, there's a multitude of losses this offseason that will have an impact. We don't know. Look, Christian McCaffrey, it makes me nervous that we might be wading into health issues again with him, which obviously plagued him early in his career with Carolina. And as you said, Brandon Ayuk, big question mark right now. Is Ricky Pearsall going to take a huge step forward, and can he stay healthy and really be a staple part of that passing offense? I guess I looked at the 49ers as one of those teams, probably 3 or 4 teams in this draft where I was like, this team needs to hit this. They need to hit it from top to bottom. And I felt like the 49ers, that was one of the teams ultimately that we're talking about. And what did they end up doing? They hammered the living crap out of defense. And everybody knew that's what they were going to be doing. I mean, I wrote in my notes early on, like, hey, their first round pick, that number 11 overall, is going to be a defensive line pick. Every team seems to know they're going to take a defensive line selection with that. And they end up taking Michael Williams out of Georgia. But, look at their draft class. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You go 5 deep all the way into round 4. They're all defensive selections. And then obviously they take Jordan Watkins, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss in round 4. But they got a hit, and they added a ton of pieces in this draft. There's no question about that. But for this to be I would almost say a Philadelphia Eagles-esque, situation where how we ran into cap issues, flushed out a lot of guys, but then hit on all his draft. Well, I don't want to say all his draft picks, but a lot of draft picks. I think that's really what allowed Philadelphia to turn quickly, right? And I think that's what the 49ers have to accomplish here. They have to hit on their draft to be able to turn quickly.
Philadelphia is a good comparison. And I would also look at the Los Angeles Rams. And when I think about them, I think back to 2022 when they had a down year and they're saying, okay, they go 5-12. Sean McVay is looking like he's really, I mean, there were even questions in some circles, would Sean McVay retire? And is he done? And he's moving to fatherhood and all of that. And then they go back, and in 2023, they get healthier. They don't lose every single offensive lineman every single week. And they've had back-to-back 10-7 seasons making the playoffs each year. And I think when I look at it, I consider this because, I mean, I was at league owners meetings, and with all due respect to Kyle Shanahan, I do think that the man has aged and the man has stressed. And I know, C-Rob, you wrote about this during the season, that he was really under some duress, it seemed, personally and as a play caller later in the year. And so I look at this and I say, okay, from an offensive standpoint, I want to know, are the 49ers going to get healthy? And is Kyle Shanahan going to reinvent himself a little bit and reinvent the offense? And obviously he's got such a strong system that I'm not saying they need to totally change what they do, but just find a couple new wrinkles to adapt it to how the game is evolving. And then on the defensive side, yes, I mean, to lose Charvarius Ward and Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw and all these guys, I mean, that is definitely a big loss. And that's where you say, as C-Rob was mentioning on the draft. So I view this as twofold: offense, play caller plus injuries, and defense, can your draft replace the guys you lost in free agency?
And obviously, I mean, they put a ton into defense. As Charles said, Jori, isn't this setting it up so you're putting everything on Brock Purdy's shoulders? At some point, like, he's going to be the 50, 55, 60, however many $1 million man for that offense. They haven't given him a lot of help. Like, they really haven't. And I get why you would load up on the defense. Like, you're right. They lost a lot of key pieces. Isn't this what we've all talked about for a while, though? Of, hey, Brock Purdy's really good in a certain situation. Isn't it setting it up so we're putting everything on Brock Purdy's shoulders and seeing, hey, can you do more with a lesser supporting cast here?
I mean, are you though? I mean, yes, you got rid of Deebo Samuel, but we just talked about, they did get George Kittle. They did have a couple guys that they brought back in. Is Christian McCaffrey going to be healthy? To me, this still feels more like injury than some big clearing of the house. Deebo Samuel was really on offense the only guy who I feel like was a major loss.
You need Ayuk, right? If Ayuk's on the roster, he's got to come back. He's got to be healthy. He has to contribute. But when like Jori brought up the Rams, and I think that's a great, franchise to look at, because the Rams ran into, I thought it was a wood chipper. I remember going out there and talking to Les Snead and being like, hey, like, this seems like it's creeping toward a rebuild. And, they had just taken a bunch of defensive players in the draft. The team was going to be really young. Even Sean McVay was like, yeah, we're going to get knocked down. He's like, but what exactly is going to happen with these young guys? Are we going to be able to get up and basically just answer and meet the challenge with Raheem Morris being the defensive coordinator at the time? But I also remember that same training camp. I asked them, who's the guy right now that's kind of blowing the doors off for everybody? And this was when nobody really knew what was coming. And they're like, Puka Nacua, this kid, that we drafted, got him late in the draft. He's been unbelievable. He's been, in the back pocket of Cooper Kupp the entire camp. We think we're going to get a ton out of him. And when you look at how the Rams were able to pivot, they hit perfectly. All these defensive players that they drafted really showed up and played well, and it developed quickly. And then Puka Nacua, out of nowhere, you got basically a superstar, right? Late in the draft. Can the 49ers really reasonably pull that off? I guess for me, I'd be like, Ayuk would have to show up, play at a high level. Kittle would have to show up, play at a high level. Christian McCaffrey would have to stay healthy. And then I'll go back to Ricky Pearsall, because if you look at like the last 4, 5, 6 games of their season, Pearsall had some really big games for the 49ers. I think if Pearsall can step up and all of a sudden really blossom into even a really good number 2 for them, I think that changes a lot on the field for them, and it takes a lot of pressure off of Purdy.
Yeah, and don't forget Juwan Jennings either. Like, he's a good player.
Oh yeah, Jennings.
I've always believed that. Like,
Yeah.
he's a heck of a player. Just has kind of been overshadowed a bit because they have so many dudes. So I don't know. I'm down on the 49ers, but willing to see. I still think the Rams are the best team in that division, and I think they're going to take the division. But I do also have a little bit of trust in Kyle Shanahan as well.
I do think when we look at the 2024 49ers, we do have to say, did they win a bunch of games? No, but did they develop a ton of players and end up having guys like the third string running back actually looking serviceable? And, this fullback coming out like a receiver. I mean, I do think that there were players who far exceeded expectations individually, even if the team with all of its injuries didn't.
I can see that. I mean, it's tough to write them off. There's a lot of really great players on that roster.